we first we moved here to Acworth in '52. I guess my dad wanted to be closer to Marietta. He drove a Greyhound bus back then. And my mother's sister, Aline Pooh, who was married to Zoomer Pooh, they lived in the Coates and Clark Mill Village. So we wanted to be closer to them as well. But we lived in that house across from Coates and Clark ball field there until I was about 10 years old, and 10 or 11. And my dad wanted to be out in the country. He thought he wanted to raise some chickens. So we bought Dan Chandler's old farm out on 3rd Army Road. So we started raising chickens. We had 12,000 chickens we had to raise. And I think my dad wanted to teach me how to work. Thank God he did. So it had 25 acres and 12,000 chickens, and every morning before the school bus ran at 7 o'clock, my sister and I, Genevieve Hobgood's her name now, we had to feed 12,000 chickens by hand with a scoop. And he says, when you get that done, he said, I may give you an allowance so you can buy a guitar. So I always wanted a guitar to play, and my dad played guitar. So I finally got all that done, and he ordered me an old Silvertone from Sears and Roebuck. My dad taught me 3 chords on that guitar that we got from Sears and Roebuck, a G, C, and a D. And he showed me one song, and I'd go out on the doorstep and I'd play that song, one little song with those 3 chords until my fingers would bleed, till I learned how to make those 3 chords really quick. After that, my dad swapped that farm to the Presleys, which is Sandra Presley's family. Sandra is married to Tommy Jones. So we moved to their house on Dixie Avenue in Acworth, but our neighbor was T.C. Cantrell. Okay. He was our next door neighbor, and his sons, Billy and Tommy, and I would play basketball in the afternoons. He had a little basketball court there. And then across the street from him was the Keenels, who I guess Keenels owned Unique Knitting Mill. And then next to them was Frank Callahan, and I think Frank's dad was the postmaster general here. So Frank played the saxophone, his son. So he'd get with me on the doorstep, and I'd play guitar, and he'd blow his saxophone. I graduated in '63 from North Cobb. Didn't think about going to college. All I thought about was going to work, because my dad said, if you get your job at Lockheed, you can't beat that. So I went to work at Lockheed in September of '63 for $2.10 an hour. I was going to night school. I was taking 3 subjects, and I dropped one. And after I dropped one, I got a draft notice. When I found out about it, I was having to buck rivets in the tail of a C-141 at Lockheed, and I was getting really tired of bucking rivets, laying on my back with a bucking bar and I thought, well, I think I'll just take this draft notice, go and do what I can. And so I went ahead and got drafted in '66. They sent me to Fort Benning, Georgia. And it was really hot that summer. We went through basic training. It got up to 115 a couple of days when we were on rifle range. Then we did 2 weeks out in the woods trying to prepare to go to Vietnam. And it was like 0 degrees, and I said, well, Vietnam's hot. I said, we're out here and it's 0, freezing to death. But then after basic, I got put in a 200th Assault Support Helicopter Company. It was a Chinook outfit. And they made me the primary electrician for all those 33 Boeing Berthold Chinooks. But I was playing guitar and singing in my tent one night, and this colonel heard me. And he says, you guys sound pretty good. And he said, would you like to go play some different places in Vietnam? And I said, well, that sounds like a neat idea. He said, well, I got my own private H. Model Huey. He said, if you want to, I'll fly you some different places on the weekend so I can get out of here too, and we can maybe have a little fun. So a guy named Larry Peters from Kansas City, Missouri played with me. So we would fly to Sock Train and do the EM clubs, officers clubs. We'd fly to Vung Tau and do the officers clubs and EM clubs there and just get out of the jungle for the weekend. So that it really helped me a lot as far as honing my guitar playing. When I came back from Vietnam, I started going to night school at Kennesaw State, which was a junior college.
Right.
Wasn't very many people going there at the time, but it was close to home. So I'd drive over there at night and go to classes. And But after I went to Georgia State, I got an internship, and that's really what sparked it. I put my name on an internship list. So they gave me an internship job at Master Sound Studios on Spring Street in Atlanta. After I got that internship job there, I started setting up their publishing company they had one hit in their catalog called by the Swinging Medallions called Double Shot of My Baby's Love. But they had recorded the theme song in there for Deliverance. Different people came in and recorded. Isaac Hayes and I became real good friends because he'd come in there and record and write songs. And James Brown would come in there, and I got to know James. And anyway, that led me to go to work for Bill Lowry. And I worked for Bill for about 3 years. And Bill was the publisher in the South. Well, one of the first writers he found and signed was Jerry Reed. He signed Ray Stevens. He signed Tommy Rowe. He signed Billy Joe Royal. He started working with Buddy Bowie, who they formed the Atlanta Rhythm Section because the Atlanta Rhythm Section were doing all the demos for them. And he started developing this big catalog. And then he had Young Love. He published Young Love, which was huge for Sonny James. So he built this big catalog up early on and became the publisher because everybody thought he was crazy trying to do that in Atlanta. Everybody thought he should move to Nashville or New York or Los Angeles, but he said, no, I love Atlanta, I'm gonna stay here. Well, it's in '78, Zell Miller, he wanted to start the Georgia Music Hall of Fame. And I got to know Zell from working with Bob and Babs Richardson at Master Sound Studios. So he appointed me to be on his committee to start this thing. And that same year, I started and co-founded the Atlanta Songwriters Association. I got to know Francis Preston, who was the head of BMI, Broadcast Music Incorporated in Nashville. And I got to know Buddy Killen, who played bass for Hank Williams Sr. and also was the co-owner of Tree Publishing in Nashville. Buddy said, okay, come up here and just talk to me. I said, okay. So I drove up and met with Buddy in his office at Tree Publishing. He says, what would it take for you to come to work for me? I said, $300 a week? He said, well, if you'd asked for $5, I'd give it to you. I said, okay. He said, what's it going to take for you to move up here? I said, well, probably about $1,700 to move. He said, okay. And he stroked me out a check for $1,700. So we came back, sold our house on Crawford Circle over here off Canton Highway, loaded up the U-Haul at trucks, said our goodbyes, drove to Nashville, and moved in a place called Smyrna, Tennessee. Well, I had a lot of stories about music, but that's another time, another place, I guess. But Acworth has really boomed. I'm really proud of the mayor here and what he's done, because I learned to swim at the Acworth Beach when I was 7 years old. Just the community that we had here, people working together and playing together and riding their bicycles. And on Saturdays when we lived across from Coates and Clark baseball field, my next door neighbor was named Johnny Haney. And he and I would ride our bicycles up here to the Legion and watch a cowboy movie and eat a hot dog at that trolley that sat next door. And then if we needed ice, we'd go across the street to Barry Rextel's father, who had an ice house over here. And we got to know each other and played ball together, and the values are so great. You didn't have to lock your cars or lock your doors. If you needed help from someone, all you had to do was call them. It was a great time to live back then, and I think the kids today are missing out on a lot of that.